and welcome to the Wise Yourself Up podcast. I'm your host, Carla McGreevy, and today we have a very special guest who you will all know, who is Emma Neill. Emma Neill is a podcaster for anyone who doesn't know. She also has her own social media account. She has a lot to say, which is one of the things I love about you. You also promote slow fashion and definitely wants to take care of the world, is the feel I get from your content.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Glad to have you. In today's episode, we're going to talk about women having casual sex.
Mm-hmm.
And is it empowering or is it not?
Yeah, all about hookup culture and whether it's kind of the same for men versus women.
Yes. But first of all, just how's your week been? What is your crack?
My week's been good. My week's been very busy. I was actually doing makeup for a wedding yesterday morning, which is always so lovely to be a part of. And yeah, no, it's a lovely sunny day and I'm sat here with you.
I'm delighted that the sun is in Belfast.
I know, finally, honestly, because we've barely seen it all summer.
Have you been in the water?
I haven't. I've been so bad with that. Because I know you're so good with it and I don't know. Do you know when you have like a bit of a mental block about it? Like I haven't done it in so long and it's one of those things once you're in the habit of, it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
But when you're not in the habit of it, building up the courage to do it is like, I don't know.
We should go before.
Because it's easier with someone else.
Definitely, and it's so gorgeous at the minute.
I know.
It's one of the things I really struggle with living in London is not
being able to go. Do you go to Hampstead Heath ever?
I do, but that's like a 3-hour excursion. Do you know what I mean? It's not really accessible. And I do go to, it's called West Reservoir. It's like a 15-minute cycle from my house. But it's just not the same as the beach. It's man-made and there's like buildings all around it. And it does, but it doesn't quite hit the spot. And it's, you know, you have to have your time to go in and they actually expect you to swim.
Okay.
You know, like that's people are like really professional swimming around in circles. It's like a route you have to go in the.
Oh, you have to follow a kind of trail, or not trail, but yeah.
Whereas I go into Helen's Bay and just flap about and swim. Do you know what I mean?
I know, like sometimes you barely even take your feet off the sand.
Yeah.
But no, I miss it. I do, and I have the little cold water tub out there, and it's just sat there. I haven't used it once.
It's so funny.
It's so fun.
I stayed in Emma's house, when was that, a few months ago?
Yeah.
And you were like, you can use the ice bath. And I was like, you're okay, Emma. Like, ice baths to me are just absolute torture.
What? More so than going in the sea?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Because I can't move.
Right. Yeah. I get that. Because when I'm really cold in the sea, I just keep going like this and I'm grand.
Yeah, whereas you can't do that in an ice bath.
Yeah. It's like you take that, like, not nervous energy, but that, you know, like heightened kind of feeling and you're just able to, like, expend it by swimming around. But so, yeah, just being still in an ice bath, I guess, is a different story.
It's torture.
But I had it in my head I was going to make that part of my morning routine. I was like, this is going to be the new me over summer. I'm going to get up every morning, go to the gym, go for a walk, come home, ice bath, shower, oats. Have I done it once? No.
What about Thomas, your boyfriend? Has he been doing it? I see that he
did it once. He's the only person that's used it.
God bless him.
I know.
You've been on loads of holidays. Have you got any more coming up? You've done a lot of travelling.
I have. I've been very lucky to do as much travelling as I've done this year. I am actually going to Porto in September, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, have you been to Porto?
Yeah, I actually went on a hen.
Oh, really?
This time last year, my cousin's hen in Porto, yeah.
So I actually don't know that many people that have been to Porto.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a huge amount of recommendations or anything, so if you have any...
Yeah, I will get the list out for when I went, yeah. Is it just you and Thomas going away, or what's your crack?
Just us two. We're doing a week, which I think is probably quite long. Most people go to Porto for a weekend.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be nice because, well, fingers crossed the weather's good and it just gives us like a bit of time. We might rent a car, go around the different vineyards and do some wine tasting. Because my plan is to be sober right up until I go to Porto.
Oh, very good.
And then to drink the Portuguese wine.
I was actually asking Emma before we started recording because I was listening to your podcast. So if you don't know Emma's podcast, it's called Here for the Crack and it's brilliant. And you really intrigued me when you said that you weren't drinking. Because it's such a hard time to not drink.
It is a hard time to not drink, and I don't know why I've decided to do it in probably one of the hardest times, but I think the fact that the weather hasn't been good has made it a lot easier. Because if the weather was good and everyone was, out at the beer gardens and, come for a cocktail or a pint here or whatever, it's going to be a lot more hard to say no, I think, in that situation, but I haven't really had that.
And what date are you going to Porto?
It's around the 15th of September, around mid-September.
That's a long stint.
Yeah, 2.5 months.
Wow.
If I pull it off. Again, I haven't got there just yet.
How far are you in now?
I'm a month in.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I was sober for
Did you not do dry January?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
I probably said I did and I didn't. I don't know, I've got really bad and I definitely need a stint off it. And living in London, and because it's been good weather, I'm just like, I think I'm an alcoholic now.
London, I think would be so difficult to do it in. Because as we were saying earlier, we were talking about how it's such a different community feel when you're at home in Belfast compared to London. The other side of that is that people in London do make more of an effort, your friends, see each other maybe more on weeknights, do dinners together, also then going out at the weekends, whereas in Belfast you kind of just passively see people more, call in for cups of tea, cups of coffee, go on wee walks here and there with different people, whereas London feels like a lot of it is very much centred around alcohol all the time. It's hard to get your socialising fix if you're not going into that.
Yeah, and I think I have to maybe just say, right, I'm definitely being sober for this period of time, because you don't drive in London, it's so easy, and I get blue like the wind.
I've never thought about that. You never have the excuse of driving.
In Belfast, if I didn't want to drink, I would take the car.
Yeah, and then you actually just can't.
Yeah.
Oh, I never thought about that. There's never an excuse.
Also because I'm just easy, do you know what I mean? I'm easily twisted into anything.
Yeah.
So I need something, but maybe just not quite yet.
Yeah. Wait till January.
Yeah, probably. Because my birthday's in September. Maybe October I could do.
October's a good month, I think, because it's kind of right before there's going to be all the festivities and the lead up to Christmas.
And Macmillan do a sober month in October, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Because I did it one year with Sazzle, our friend whose birthday it is today, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Sazzle.
Yeah, so we went sober 1 October, so it is a good month, especially up to Christmas.
I think so too. I'd like to do October. Well, actually, sober up to September and then sober in October, yeah, we'll see.
See how you go.
Yeah. How's your week been?
Oh, my week?
Yeah.
How has my week been? Work's been good and busy, working with lots of clients online, which has been great, and I've started trying to get in-person classes up and running in London.
Oh, that'd be good.
Because I basically have no clientele in London. All my clientele is people from Belfast who are scattered around the world, so I probably will attract Belfast people in London, I would say. And yeah, settling into the flat, which has been lovely. And yeah, just trying to settle more into London. So I was in Bali until March. Then I came home until June. It's only the 1st of August today. Oh, so I've barely been in London.
It's not been long. Oh, in my head it was a lot longer than that.
No. So, and today I got a notification on Facebook. Back in the day when you used Facebook to announce your life. It was like, I'm moving to London. I'll let you know how I get on. Yeah. So that's funny. And now I'm 10 years later still trying to friggin' settle into London.
How long did you go for the first time?
Oh, it was awful the first time. I moved for a boy and a job, so I had all these reasons to go to London. Do you know what I mean? So the guy I was seeing was in London, and I was sort of chasing money at the time in the roles I was doing, so I was getting offered roles in different places, but I didn't want to move to cities I didn't know anybody in, so I was more enticed because I knew some people in London.
Yeah.
And then I moved there, and I've never cried as much as I cried that year. And I'm not really a person who cried, and my best friend Rebecca was like, oh Carla, I can't go. Every day, I was just crying constantly. But it was brilliant in other ways, because it's how I know all the friends that connect me and you as well. You know, it's all through that music, London, Belfast scene that sort of exists. Yeah, so the job I went for, it wasn't the job I was sold. I was in Brighton a lot, I was travelling a lot, And then I think I moved within the year. I got offered a role with Guinness then in Dublin, and then I moved to Dublin. So I was chasing money at that time of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever the money took you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all it was for me. It was just like, I worked in the drinks trade and it was organising events and it was fun and, you know, everything was company paid and it was great at the time. And I was actually a lot stricter about drinking then than what I am now. For everybody listening, there's 10 years between me and you, so I'm 36 and you're 26. So I was the same age as you when I went there. And I was just very aware that when you work in the drink industry, especially when you work in the brand side of things, you can just become a paid alcoholic.
Yeah.
You're at so many events. It's the same as I heard you were saying, like when you started to get invited to influencer events and it's free drink everywhere and everything. Everybody thinks it's great. But I was like, I don't want to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live this lifestyle. And so I was really strict and I didn't really drink at work events and things like that because it just would have been a very slippery slope.
Oh, 100%. And also, not to mention, you're actually there to work as well. So if you were like hammered in front of everyone, wouldn't always be the best look. But I've had times in my life, you know, working in bars and stuff where I was very much drinking 5 days a week.
Really? I can't imagine. Because for me, you are so health focused, you feel like. You know, obviously you enjoy the crack, but you also eat well and you look after yourself. I can't imagine that.
Even I can't imagine it now. Like, thinking back on it, I'm like, how did I do that?
When was it?
I went to Australia when I was 20 for a year, and that's when I worked in like a bar nightclub, and I would have drank 5 days a week.
Mental.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I was still very much like into looking after myself and eating the right foods and like being active in a sense. Now, I wasn't a member of a gym or going to any yoga or Pilates classes because I was so skint at the time, so I didn't have the money for that. I was still very much active and like into looking after myself, but at the same time I was just like living this crazy life. I don't know.
I think that's a rite of passage too.
Yeah.
You know, like I think you do have to go
all my
through
friends
that.
were at uni at the time, and I dropped out of uni and had gone to Australia. So to me, that was like my pressures, you know, like first year of uni, wild time, and I just think I needed to get that out of my system probably. Yeah,
I think it's good to do it when you're younger because you'll always go through that phase in your life. I was later. I didn't do that until my late 20s probably, which is strange. We'll get on to this week's topic, which is casual sex. Is it empowering for women or is it not? First of all, I wanted to start on, which I think is really interesting, is our age gap. As me being a millennial and you being a Gen Z, and just even in the short period of time when we look at our grandparents, for me when I was looking at casual sex, it's such a recent thing, right? And you look at our grandparents' parents, me to you, the change even in me to you in our generation is massive. It's insane because our grandmothers were one sexual partner for life.
Yeah.
Then it was okay, you can have sex with one person at a time, and that's how sex went.
Yeah.
And now it's like you can do what you want.
Yeah. But that's probably for women. I feel like there's been a different standard for men.
Where they could have always had the free sex.
Yeah. Like if you even think about, like, do you watch Bridgerton?
That's the one with the Irish actress in it.
Nicola Coughlan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the men in that are sleeping around loads, and it's a very known thing, but yet it's very shameful for women to do the same, or to like have sex out of wedlock, or, you know, to get pregnant while they're single. So I feel like, you know, since as old as time basically, it's been a completely different standard for men to women. And because back in the day there wasn't the same, and not that there is good laws now, I think there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to males having the same responsibility over children as women. However, back then it was quite literally like they could just fuck off and say, that's not my child.
But that's literally what happened to me. Sure, my mummy fell pregnant, my dad just fucked off and said,
well, yeah, so that's what I mean, you still very much can do it, but back then you could do it to a whole other level of like no contact, that woman's shunned from society.
Oh yeah, but I still think that about my mummy too. When she had me, that she definitely would have faced a lot of shame in terms of her not having a baby into the relationship, but she was in it for a few years and everybody knew who their partner was. And yeah, I think that there was a real epidemic. I don't know if epidemic's going to be a bit OTT, but a lot happened in the 80s when casual sex became more common for women, and then you had all these babies being born who then the woman was sent to the church and the baby was taken off her, and then that sort of came in the 80s, do you know?
Yeah.
And that's what Esther Perel talks about, is women always protected the family unit, men were always promiscuous and cheating, but women always stayed, or they didn't have the same freedom.
Yeah, and it probably, well, not probably, definitely is links back to like the fact that women couldn't have jobs and couldn't have their own bank accounts and all these things. They actually fully relied financially on men, so they didn't have the option of like going off and doing all these things if they wanted to keep the financial stability, and you know.
Yeah, and you needed a man to have a baby then, whereas now it's okay if you fall pregnant and you decide to keep the baby.
No, you very much needed a man then if you wanted to be able to support your child, and yeah.
When you were growing up, was casual sex always seen as an okay thing for you to explore as a woman?
Like, not with my mum. She comes from a very Catholic family, so I think my mum would struggle to ever talk about anything like that with us. Although she isn't now like super religious or that way inclined, you can still tell that she was brought up in that kind of environment. Whereas I feel like, you know, me and my siblings now are so the opposite. We'll talk about literally whatever. Yeah, so it was never like an open conversation with my mum, but I think maybe in school it was a little bit more normalised. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of slut shaming that happened, you know, when people first started to, I don't know, let's say like first to fourth year, when, you know, rumours started to spread about people and there was a lot of slut shaming involved. But I think in general, my perception of it growing up was that it was a normal thing. I don't think I ever thought differently. But then it wasn't until really that I, say, made friends when I was a bit older with people who weren't from the city. Because obviously, when you're younger, all you know is like, you know, your life and the people who went to your school and the people who did what you did. And it wasn't until I like had a job where I met people that weren't from the city and had very different views, and they'd all only slept with their 2 boyfriends or whatever, that I was like, wait, what? This still is a thing?
Yeah, because when I was growing up, say I had 10 girlfriends that we were like a wee clique in school, nobody slept about when I was 18. Nobody really was promiscuous, and if you were slut shamed and talked about. And I remember believing or thinking that's the worst thing I could be, is a slut or to be promiscuous. So I was very much removed to explore myself sexually, because I just was what was conditioned onto me. Do you know what I mean? So I don't even know what my truth is in terms of what I would have been like had I not been so afraid of being a slut. Or you can never do that, Carla.
Yeah.
So we were all the same. We all had a boyfriend of a year, and then you got to sleep with your boyfriend because you were out for a year, and we all, you know, and I look back and it's like we were all just wee sheep coppering each other.
Yeah. Waiting for the timeline.
Yeah, it's like, well, now I'm not a slut now, I can sleep with her now, it's been a year. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
oh, don't get me wrong, like it was definitely still very much that in school. It was more kind of once, I guess, people got into their 20s and went to uni and stuff, it was a bit more liberal where that was concerned.
Yeah, and I think in England it's a lot more liberal. I think Ireland is still very backwards in terms of, obviously, Christianity here has such a massive influence in how we behave.
Yeah. I don't know what sex education is like in English schools. I can't imagine it's much more progressive than what we have here.
It wouldn't be much difference, but I think it's the influence of religion is stronger in Ireland that made the difference on our behaviours, perhaps.
Yes, and creates probably more of a stigma around it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, our parents were raised by a generation that quite literally didn't talk about it. So then they're only trying to get to grips with that, having kids. And I don't think it's going to be until like the next generation that we actually see a bit of a difference in that, with people talking about it.
Yeah, and then you look at Ireland and condoms weren't available until 1986.
Yeah.
So there wasn't even an option for women to be promiscuous.
Yeah.
Before.
And also, sure, it was only became legal to have an abortion not that long ago, so that was a whole other thing where if you did get pregnant, you would literally have to fly to England to get an abortion.
But even now, there's still no is there abortion clinics here?
There are, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When did that happen? Because there was a lot of backlog, wasn't there, where it was legalised, but you still actually
it was
one.
really difficult to go, yeah. So there are places now, but it's actually been uncovered so many of those places are acting as abortion clinics, but then you come in and they give you false medical advice and try and persuade you to have the baby. It's crazy, Carla. You need to watch. There's a documentary on it. I'll send you it.
That's awful.
And it's like registered nurses doing this as well, giving false medical advice. They should be struck off. Like, it's actually insane. It's more in places like Derry, and in Belfast you find an abortion clinic fine and they'll give you complete, honest, true medical advice and lay out all the options for you. It's very much like you can go and get it on that day and it's fine. But yeah, some clinics in places outside of Belfast are trying to skew women from doing this, which is so unfair because they know these women are coming in vulnerable positions. Like, okay, yes, the odd time women will come in and they'll be very strong in their decision. They're like, no, this is what I want. Like, this is what I'm getting. I'm not leaving here without that happening. But a lot of women will be going into these clinics so vulnerable, so emotional, not really knowing what their options are, a little bit iffy about abortion because they've been raised maybe by some, people and in a society that frowns upon that and like already have their kind of negative thoughts towards it, but at the same time want it, and then to all of a sudden then have a medical professional in your face saying this is the potential to do this to you and like giving them false medical advice about it, and then starting to preach the word of God and all this to them to sway them to have the baby is insane. Like, it's crazy and it's so illegal. Yeah.
It's so problematic here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what breaks my heart when you think about women years ago who fell pregnant unwantedly, is that if you were working class, you didn't have the money to go to England. No. And Emma Kieran, do you know that writer? He's like a poet. He does spoken word. I will link the poem underneath in the show notes because this poem like still makes me cry when I listen to it, and it's a poem about women, and it's just about this young girl falling pregnant, and her mum was like, we don't have the money to send you for an abortion, and how she ends up being a single mother and like the whole trajectory of her life.
Yeah, which is so ironic because someone that can't afford an abortion, how are they affording to have a child as well? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to look at that
because then
well.
when you have a child, you get state benefits to help you, but the state won't help you have an abortion, even though if the state would help women have abortions who need them.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper than supporting a child for 18 years through the state. I don't know if you can compare those two things, but you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't help a woman make what choice she wanted because she's going to live a very financially restrictive life if they didn't have the money to have an abortion.
Yeah. I was listening to an audiobook this morning and the writer was talking about her grandmother that is like really Catholic, and she said about her, which I think you can relate to so many people in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, that she cares more about unborn children until they're born and then she doesn't give a fuck about them.
Yeah.
And that's such a thing because all these people preaching that abortion's the worst thing ever and it's a gift from God and blah blah blah, and then the child's born. What if the child is gay? What if the child is transgender? Yeah. What if do you know what I mean? And they don't give a shit about them then. What if the child's a woman and they want to have the rights to their own body to make their decisions? They don't give a fuck. They just care about this unborn child. It's like, it makes no sense.
It's crazy, and also because an abortion is a trauma for a person, whether you wholly, this is your decision. It's a lot for your body, it's a lot for your hormones. We were speaking about Grace Campbell, the comedian, before this. So Grace Campbell's a comedian. She did a recent podcast episode on, do you know Jamila Jamil's I Weigh podcast?
No.
It's a really good podcast. Jamila Jamil, do you know who she is?
I don't think so.
She does a lot of campaigning. She's a model and she goes out with James Blake or someone famous. Someone like that, but she's like a famous presenter. She does a lot of work around the dad industry and how destructive it is, but also Grace Campbell had an abortion and then she spoke about it on the podcast, and then Jamila Jamil was speaking about her abortion too, and how they both made the right decisions, but just how traumatic it was for them at the same time. But more so for Grace Campbell, Cut Lover, because she speaks about how she had to listen to the heartbeat before having the abortion, which shouldn't always be the way, because Jamila Jamil's didn't have to listen to the heartbeat. So it's all those small things that are massive in terms of how you're gonna process that.
Yeah. I've heard of that before, someone I know that had to listen to the heartbeat.
I know people as well who had to, and these are friends of mine who had to, you know, fly to England and stuff, and that's another thing, like, you're in a different country and you're not around, like, the things that could comfort you and nourish you.
And then you have to get a flight home while going through all that. It's crazy. Awful. Yeah, it's awful. And I have a really big fear that actually they will try, well, because the political parties here, they do want to try and reverse that. They want to try and make it illegal again. I mean, let's hopefully keep them out of Parliament.
I've spoken about this before in this podcast. Straight men are so far removed from the reality of the implications of casual sex and contraception.
They will never understand what it's like from a female perspective.
And that's what I was saying about in casual sex. And this is from my own experience and from so many women, so many friends, saying the boys just don't want to wear condoms in casual sex, and it's because you're so far removed from the reality of the risk of pregnancy. You think the morning after pill and abortion so easy, when it's like, I don't want to put a big load of hormones in my body. I will do it if I have to. And it just infuriates me, and that's why they're like, well, sure, it's not that big a deal that, you know, you'll have to have a baby as a repercussion of a night of fun or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, I always think the boys that say that, like, if they're saying that to you, they're saying that to everyone.
I know, it's disgusting.
And they're the same people that aren't getting STI checks.
Oh, don't! Like, there's not a bigger ick than if I would have sex with someone, whether we started dating, and there's not a sniff or a mention of the word condom, and I'm just like, well, that's an insight. Winds me up.
I know.
But also on that, I just want to note that I was pro-life as when I was 18.
Were you?
Isn't that mental? I'm sorry, I feel like this is confessions of a feminist. Because I was brought up so Catholic. I grew up with my grandparents, so my granny would be like 90 now. I would age my 36. You know, there was that big, you know, I was brought up with someone who's much, much older than me. And I had to go to church every week, and I was definitely heavily influenced, you know. Sex was something I had to keep and guard from a man. It wasn't for my pleasure. I had no idea that sex was for pleasure, and I was definitely indoctrinated that way about abortion. And it wasn't until I got more educated and went to university, and, you know, you live your life and you come out of this wee Catholic bubble in West Belfast. And then that's what's funny, because I always would have felt I was a feminist, even though I had these views before. And that's what I think's funny with the casual sex, is that I would have been so frigid in my 20s because of how deeply conditioned I was by the community I grew up with and the faith I grew up in. Even if you want to be more explorative, it's so deeply ingrained in you, it's hard to break out of that. And then it was so funny then to be around all these feminists, and then you feel like you're a bad person for not being promiscuous then.
Yeah.
Like you're a bad feminist if you don't have casual sex.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And because you're saying, like, it's so, you know, embedded into you, even then when you did just, like, have sex with your boyfriend or something, even then, the guilt you feel or something after it was so bizarre when you, like, on one side of my brain would be like, that's a normal thing for you to do in a relationship, and the other side was like, we shouldn't be doing this all the time. Do you know what I mean? I was coming away from my boyfriend at the time, so I was thinking, maybe we should be doing more wholesome things and, like, not having sex all the time. Did you ever feel like that?
Isn't that so interesting? Because then it shows that a part of you seeing it as bad. Like, it's deeply rooted in our bloodline, in our bodies, that sex is shameful and bad.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in men and women. Incidents of, like, a man getting showered after every time he had sex, like, straight away.
Yeah.
And that means, for me, reading that is, you obviously feel shame around sex, or that it's dirty. You need to wash yourself to be clean.
Yeah, like, I've definitely broken free from that mindset anymore. I actually have no guilt or shame, I don't think, anymore. It's obviously taken a lot of years to get to that. But like, I definitely remember with my first boyfriend, even though he was literally my, like, not that you should feel guilt or shame if it's not your boyfriend, but even then, when it was like in a very like safe environment with a boyfriend, and I was still feeling that way about it, it's crazy. But then also had the other part of my brain saying like, no, this is a normal thing to do, and like, that's what, well, I guess everyone else is doing it as well.
The world has changed so fast in 100 years. You know, in 100 years it was one person for life. And now, you know, you can have casual sex. We have the contraception now to enjoy casual sex. We discussed the female orgasm. We are researching the female orgasm for the first time ever. Lily Allen actually spoke in her podcast saying she didn't have her first orgasm until she was in her 30s. And didn't start masturbating until she was in her 30s. I was like, what the...
Oh my god, I'm acting shocked, but at the same time I'm like, but that's not that shocking when you actually think about it. I didn't know that you could have an orgasm really as a female, I guess, when I was first having sex.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't really remember, but I was lucky that my first sexual partner, that did happen because he was a bit more experienced than me.
Right.
So he knew about it and he taught me about it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I knew. I just got lucky.
But like, it wasn't something that was talked about. Do you know what I mean?
But I can't really remember with girlfriends at the time. Probably not.
No.
And there's some of my...
We talk about having sex, but I don't think the female orgasm ever came into that.
I think maybe in my early 20s I sort of was curious about my friends who didn't talk about sex, and I was like, have you ever had an orgasm? Why are you so shy? You know, just being... Because I would naturally want to discuss sex because I think there's just so much that could be happening in the world with sex that I just want to know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just be curious, because how can you know what your options are if you don't know do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know your reality on things.
Oh yeah, definitely. You need other people's perspectives and their experience and their stories to just even introduce that into your life. Because if you're just with one partner, like, you know, when are you going to find out about these things?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say about, you know, bringing up women who are older than us, not orgasm until they were much older. And I think the world changed so fast, but our psychology and physiology didn't match it. Mm-hmm. So we would be told, you can have sex with as many men as you want, you can have casual sex, but our bodies freeze and our mind feels shame, and there's all these, like, the hangover of casual sex for a woman, and that's a lot of what the research shows. And that's what, you know, that we're talking about. Like, does it serve women casual sex?
Well, I mean, have you ever had a one night stand that has actually been pleasurable? I feel like one night stands, or even just like drunk sex in general, it's not very female orientated.
I will say I've had maybe one.
Okay.
That was very pleasurable. I think it did shock me, but I only really explored that probably in the past few years, and I think I just could never relax or trust a man, and that's a big part of having sexual pleasure. You need to feel relaxed. And then it was because you listen to all these older women, for me, and they're like, you know, ride as many men as you can. And,
yeah,
you know,
you're young. Like,
and I'm like, I'm going to regret this when I'm old. I need to do something about this. I'm stressed out. But yeah, you're right. So I'm glad I did try it, and I was lucky that I had some good experience. But fuck me, like,
not that they're always bad experiences. I just think drunk sex in general is just like very much like quick shag, the man comes and that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're there to have a night of passion. It's not like it's your boyfriend that knows exactly what he's doing and knows exactly what makes you tick. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the problem with casual sex, is that ability for a woman to relax, because you need to feel safe to orgasm. And then especially because we're more talking about straight sex, right? Is the orgasm gap. And that's what's so interesting. So that 65% of women climax in straight sex. But if women were with women, that would go up to 90%.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
That's crazy.
So it is about men maybe not caring about our sexual pleasure, and maybe not.
Oh, I've had partners in the past that have not given one single flying fuck. Like a boyfriend.
I think...
And I look back on it now and I'm like, how was I okay with that?
I think because I was blessed with my first experience where he, you know, and I grew up in a world where I always had orgasms, and then I remember like the second person I slept with, I didn't climax. Not that it's all about the orgasm, but I mean it's a nice add-on, and I was shook that they didn't care.
They didn't care, yeah. Once they did, switch, gone. They're not interested.
What is this word? I was like, I couldn't understand it.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of them not caring and also them just not understanding, them thinking that was you having the best time and that, do you know what I mean? I think there is an element of like, they've never talked about it or they don't know what to be doing. I guess it was a very uncommunicative relationship as well ultimately, otherwise we would have been speaking about that, do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of elements to it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the problem too, isn't it? Because I feel women, especially in heterosexual sex, there's that power dynamic, and the way we're designed and programmed is to please a man basically through, you know, our history, and it's hard to say, well, no, can you do it like this? And then sometimes, no harm, a male's ego is so fragile that they're all upset that they're, because they thought they were doing the right thing, and upset that that's based off of previous partners that you're thinking, do you know what I mean? That you're remembering, because this person did this and that was good, then this person needs to do this. So they get really like in their own head then about the fact that you're telling them to do something that your an ex-partner used to do. Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had that once.
Oh really?
Where they were like, that annoys me because I know you've experienced that from someone else and that's why you're telling me to do it. And it's like, well, what else am I supposed to do?
But also, could you not have found it out yourself, the masturbation? Unless it's a certain position, right? That works.
But yeah, the male ego is a fragile thing.
It really is. What else was it I wanted to talk about casual sex? So do you think it has a place in society?
I think it has a place in society, but I don't think it's fair to say that if women just act like the same way that men do when it comes to casual sex, that it works the same way for us, if that makes sense. Like, I think there's a lot more risks associated for us in terms of like getting pregnant, and even risks associated with STIs that can affect us very differently to males.
I have real sexual health anxiety. I could not sleep with someone and not get tested. I would just,
but so, do you know the amount of people that have never been tested in their life?
I don't know how to sleep at night. I don't think I'm an anxious person, but most times I have sex and like I'm definitely pregnant. And I am so safe because maybe it's because I was in unwanted pregnancy. It's like I can't repeat that pattern. I can't repeat it, and I won't. And then also because I want the option to have children, because it's so bad for us to get STIs.
Whereas it actually, no, I'm not saying it doesn't affect them, but it's generally a lot more straightforward for men when it comes to getting STIs. Whereas if you have something for an extended amount of time without realising it, because it's not showing any symptoms, it can be really bad for you. It's weird because I think there's so many things in life where you're really applauded for acting like a man in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
For some reason, casual sex isn't one of those. It is in certain ways, but then in other ways it's really frowned upon. But then sometimes I guess you've got, you know, with your group of friends, they're like gearing you up and kind of applauding you for it. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, but actually the risks involved with it are so different from men to women, and men do have that ability. I literally know someone that has done this and they've just like walked away and said, no, that's not my child. I know you were sleeping around at the time, so who knows whose that is. They can't just wash their hands of responsibility like that and have nothing to do with it. But I also don't buy into this whole thing of like women being more prone to falling for a man after sex. I don't buy into that. Or being more bonded to them and stuff like that.
You don't?
No.
But the research shows that we, in female orgasm, that we release more oxytocin and more dopamine than a man.
Yeah, a little bit more, but they still release it.
Yeah.
I've had one night stands and after it being like, okay, get the fuck out of my sight, you know?
Oh, yeah,
ordering an
absolutely.
Uber, getting the fuck out of here. And like in the same way that men would do that. And yeah, there's other times where you might feel closer to them. And I don't think that's like a male versus female thing. I don't think, you know, females are more vulnerable to that. I just think it depends on your mindset at the time.
And I think this is the problem in terms of being really honest with yourself, in terms of what you're looking for, and I
Yes.
think that's what the lies. And if you're telling yourself that you're comfortable with casual sex, and then you're left yearning, you mightn't necessarily be yearning for him, but you're yearning for more of a connection.
Partner or a connection
and
or
that's
something.
where the disparity lies.
Yeah.
Whereas if you know you want casual sex, then you're like, right, your time's done now.
Yeah.
The taxi's outside, away you go.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's such a confusion with that, and it probably just comes from maybe females more often wanting more and not being honest with themselves and thinking that they can play this game and like jump into this male role of being very like blasé and just feeding into that hookup culture. But then actually when it comes down to it, that's not what they're looking for, and they'd be better off, dating and doing these things. And I can even look back at times in my life and I'm like, oh yeah, I was very much emotionally unavailable to be a part of that casual sex hookup culture thing. And then there's times in my life I haven't been able to be a part of that, but you have to recognise it within yourself.
Yeah, and when I'm vulnerable, I definitely can't. Like, I'm not the strongest in myself.
Yeah.
And I definitely see that in me. There's also a part of me that can only have casual sex with someone that I'm not that into.
Yeah.
If I really like someone and I secretly want them to go out with me, then I will definitely try not to sleep with them, because I will end up so hurt if it doesn't go the way I want it to go.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty normal though. Like, if you know you like someone or you could potentially actually want something more from them, it's pretty likely, whether you're a man or a woman, to think, okay, well, I'm gonna get attached if I
think a man would just sleep with you.
Yeah, that's true.
And Emma Neill always makes that joke, I'm not cut out for casual sex, even though she talks about having casual sex. She said, I just want them all to fall in love with me. Why are you not in love with me? You should sleep with me and be in love with me.
You should be obsessed with me.
Yeah, so even if you don't like them and you have sex and then they don't you're like, excuse you?
Yeah,
you're like,
what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But then that's again just like an ego thing, isn't it? I think if you're that cut off from it, then you should have the ability to not think like that. But then this is the thing, this is the issue that comes from hookup culture, is that in training yourself and your brain to act this way and to be very cut off from the emotional side of things and wanting to like just have sex for that and that only and not get caught up in anything else, you're kind of fucking yourself over a little bit when the time comes that you want more than that. Yes. Because you're so trained in being emotionally distant. I have times in my life where I can be like that, and then I can switch back into developing a connection if it's what I want. Whereas I feel like a lot of people, especially men, actually will have practiced that same rhetoric within hookup culture so often that then when it comes to being in a relationship, they don't know how to not be like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's strange now, because when I was younger, you dated and then you had sex, where now people have sex and then they date. It's so different now.
It's so different. And I do get it, because if you're not going to be sexually compatible, why date them? You might as well cut to the chase and find out straight away.
I think sometimes I like not knowing, because I like the build up when you like someone, yeah.
Then the build up can be really disappointing.
I've never had that when there's been a build up, I don't think.
What, and then you've been really underwhelmed?
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
Alright.
But not that it's happened that much, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I would be someone who regularly feels connection with people. I haven't said I've been mad about someone in nearly 3 years now. Or,
really?
Had someone I'm like, oh, I'm all biz about that person. And it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous because there's other friends who's like, oh, I had this amazing connection with this guy, and then I had an amazing connection with her. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I just don't connect that easy with people.
Oh, really?
No.
You don't have like wee flings and like...
I do have flings, but I'm not like butterflies.
Like obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get very obsessed with people, I think. If you actually look at my timeline, I've been in 4 relationships and like actually not being single that much, so it kind of looks like I'm a little bit of a relationship hopper. But I think when I connect to someone, I'm just like really, I don't know, really in it.
Yeah, whereas I was in a relationship from like I was like 18 to 25 on and off, just with the one guy that whole time. So I was only like your age when I started seeing someone new.
Yeah.
Do you know? So it's so different.
Yeah.
And then I've had 3 boyfriends since then, so 4 too.
Yeah, that's not that much over the course of that amount of time.
Yeah, because
That's like, that's like 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really not a lot. You know when you come out of a relationship and you're like, I despise boys, I'm not being in a relationship for another 2 years minimum, you know, like I'm either going celibate or going feral. There's no in between. It has to be one or the other. And then I just accidentally end up meeting someone that I end up falling for.
And that's my problem. I can't be feral because I'd never want to have sex with that many boys. I wish there was a range, there was loads of boys I wanted to have sex with, and there's not.
But then are you looking for a connection to have casual sex?
Maybe I just am just like, yeah.
Because that's not what you want to do.
How long were you single before Thomas? Which is Emma's current boyfriend, for anyone who doesn't know.
I had like the most toxic breakup of my entire life, so we were back and forth with each other for a lot longer after the kind of actual breakup, if that makes sense. So, yeah, not very long.
Oh, really? I never knew that. I thought you were single ages.
Our official breakup, as in like actual, you know, the initial breakup, let's say, was November, and I didn't start going out with Thomas till July.
That's close though.
But there was a lot of back and forth after November.
Yeah, that is close.
Yeah.
Just shows you how things go though. I think we all do that when you have a real, whether it's a toxic connection or a deep connection, it's not easy just to end it.
Oh no, who has ever done a clean breakup ever? I really take my hat off to people that do that.
I went on a date with a guy, right? And he cheated on his ex-girlfriend and they were meant to move in together. And she just clean break, that was it.
Well, good on, as she should. If someone cheated on me, I think it'd be different. If someone cheated on me, I think I could do a clean breakup. Don't get me wrong, I think there'd be the whole like, how could you do this to me and that, all that. But I think once I got that out of my system, I think it'd be a clean break. Whereas like a kind of breakup that you're not sure about is always sets you up for a few months of hell.
No,
He really put me through the ringer. It was in my last term of uni and everything. It was the biggest mindfuck I've ever dealt with in my entire life.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah, it was so bad. I was like back and forth between Belfast and Leeds, just constantly having mental breakdowns, trying to focus on my exams. Yeah, it was not good.
God bless you.
I know, I'm glad I came out the other side with a first behind me because I was like, fuck you.
That's amazing. You did first.
Yeah, because at one point I genuinely thought, I'm not going to finish this course. I'm actually in the pits here. So yeah, I was delighted to get out the other side.
I was about to say, I got cheated on and I still did the not
Did
clean
you?
break.
Oh, it's hard though, isn't it? You want to think the best of someone, so you're probably looking for reasons that they did it. But then you probably learn from that, and if that was to ever happen to you again, you wouldn't. Or you'd like to think so anyway.
Yeah, I'm definitely different now. I think because I'm older. I think when I was younger, you were happy to go out with people and you're not thinking about forever. Whereas now I'm more thinking about if I want to get in a relationship, it's long term. And so I wouldn't put up with that shit now.
Yeah.
Where you're younger, you're not thinking that
Yeah.
longevity as much.
I always say this to people that when I was younger, I didn't think about being with my partners for the rest of my life, and they're like, but then why were you in the relationship? If you don't see a relationship lasting, then why would you get into it in the first place? And I was like, I don't know, it just seemed like the right thing at the right time.
I think it's love and lust,
Yeah.
which isn't always forever.
Yeah, you can love someone and it'd be the right thing for that time and not think, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person. Like, I think you can know you're going to have multiple relationships and experiences with people and know ultimately it's not, I mean, I know with my boyfriend now I'm going to marry this man, but yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They always say when you know, and now I like 100% get it.
That's mental.
Yeah, I know. Whereas I've never said that about anyone before, ever.
That's insane.
Yeah. I've talked about future plans with previous boyfriends, as in like, you know, Don and I maybe we'll move in together, we'll do this. I've never thought I'm going to marry you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you until now.
Whereas I think maybe every boyfriend but my last one, I knew that maybe I could.
Really?
And I always felt there was always talk of us being together forever. There was always talk of us marrying one day.
Really?
Yeah. But I've only had 4 boyfriends, so
Yeah.
3. There was always talk of perhaps this would be a very long-term thing, yeah, where you would have thought, yeah, and then it just didn't work out. But I don't think I felt the way you're describing, where I was like to my friends, this is the one and I'm done.
Yeah, there's a huge difference there between talking about potential future plans versus like, this is our life now. Did you ever think in your previous relationships, even though you were talking about these future plans and getting married, were you ever like, oh, but is this the way I want to be loved for the rest of my life? Did that ever play in your brain?
No, I wasn't that emotionally acute.
Oh, right, okay. Because that was something that was going on in my brain for my previous relationships, was like, yeah, it could be a long-term thing, but also, do I want it to be? Is this how I want to be loved the rest of my life? Or actually, do I deserve way better than this? And we'll find that eventually. And I think that's ultimately
wise.
Yeah.
I think one relationship I definitely felt like he really loved me and showed me love. And then in others, I knew this is shite. You know, and I think I've had a mix probably.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lifestyle together. There's definitely been relationships where I love our lifestyle together. You know, we party a bit and we do this, we go swimming, and you know, you have a mix of all the different components that you want to be a part of your life.
Yeah.
I've been in relationships before where someone was always doing one or the other.
Yeah.
Like either someone was completely in the partying scene or completely in the exercise scene.
Okay, so you kind of liked that life balance you had together with...
Yeah, because also I have been that exercise addict who never knew how to chill out. Was always thinking about, well, I don't want to be hungover and I don't want to be this, and I sort of enjoy a more balanced life now.
Mm-hmm. And are you involved in the dating scene all in London?
Oh my god, will I tell a story, right? I matched with a guy on Hinge. He had a really lovely job in terms of like a current job, really sweet, he was very handsome, went on a date and that was grand. We've been texting since April, but because I was travelling so much between London and Ireland...
Is this all on Hinge, sorry, you're communicating?
Well, we went to WhatsApp then.
Right, okay.
And so it felt like a long time with...
All this happening before the first date?
Yeah.
Right.
And then we go on the second date and that was grand. And then the third date, you know, I could tell he's like, oh, do you want to come back to mine? And, you know, all this crack.
Yeah.
And because I haven't dated at all this year. I've had a terrible year. I dated a guy at Christmas and then I went off Hinge and then I didn't have any more dates. And I was like, Carla, you're only young and hot once. Like, I need to date. I was like, so much for being feral. I can't even go to a fucking date. Like, what is wrong with me, Emma? Like, I'm the worst single person that ever lived. And so I obviously had this in my mind. So I was like, have sex, just enjoy your life. And when we went to have sex, he didn't bring up a condom or anything, and obviously I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time I met him, we were getting close to having sex, and he was like, I have no condoms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that turned me.
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
as in, you were thinking he's doing this with other people without condoms, or you were thinking that's a lack of respect?
Both. I think that he will just have sex with anybody without a condom, and he's so far removed from STIs and pregnancy that he just cares about not wearing a condom because it's his preference.
Yeah.
And he knew that I wasn't on anything and he's no thought here.
Not your preference of not wanting to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's actually the whole other thing that comes into it, is the contraception side of things and how it's like all on women to take that upon themselves. It's not spoken about enough how much of an effect all these different methods of contraception have on you and have on your body and your mental health and everything. I went off the pill a few years ago now, and the thought of going back on it would actually terrify me.
Yeah, I was on it when I was young and I used to cry, and my boobs, I was a 32E, I was massive, my boobs were like...
32E?
I was quite a big boobs when I was younger.
Shut up.
Because of the pill, yeah.
Oh my god.
I was psychotic. I was on the coil and I loved it. I think it's individual. I have had friends who have enjoyed being on the pill, and for me, the reason I came off the coil was my age and wanting to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the coil works is that it releases copper ions to kill the sperm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, if I'm doing this over a long period of time, how is that going to contribute to a healthy environment to conceive?
Yeah.
and that's the reason why I come off it. But other than that, if I never wanted to have children, I would probably still be on it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think it's longevity. It's the length of time you're on these contraceptions plays a part into how they affect you too.
Yeah.
I think some people can be happy on the pill for a period of time, but when you come to 10, 15 years, what's that doing to you?
I know, like it's completely switching off all your natural hormonal responses.
Do you follow the hormone coach? Sorry, Maria Rafferty. I always get your
I do.
Instagram name mixed up. I'm doing a podcast with her, and she brings up the really interesting point of this obsession with the menopause and obsession with HRT and the menopause and everybody freaking out and freaking out about their hormones, but yet nobody seems to give a fuck until you hit the menopausal age.
Yeah, it's like we're not actually having these hormones anyway and regulating them and making sure they're healthy. We're trying to switch them off with all these different forms of contraception, and then all of a sudden it's like,
my estrogen.
Yeah, it really frustrates me how it really just falls on women to the point that it angered me so much that I just was like, I'm not doing that anymore. Don't get me wrong, it is your responsibility as a woman, obviously, to take these precautions, and I don't want to promote unhealthy practices where that's concerned, and you need to try out these different things and see what works for you. At the end of the day, the pills didn't work for me, and it was frustrating me that was put on me for me to do, and I just thought, well, if I'm in a relationship, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
To myself.
I think I would be the same. Although when I was younger, because I was so afraid of falling pregnant, I don't know if I would be capable of just using condoms and the rhythm method, because I was so anxious about falling pregnant. You know, I think it's difficult, isn't it? It's so much stress.
But they also, like, doctors here, they don't warn you about anything, you know, they don't tell you about the potential side effects of pills or long term, like it's maybe not great for you to do, or even with the coil, I've heard so many stories of them being given no pain medication, no anesthetic, like nothing, and just expected to drive home after when it's been a really traumatic experience.
Well, that was my experience. I wasn't given anything, and I know women who've fallen pregnant on the coil as well.
I just think our healthcare system has a lot of catching up to do. Like, you know, in Australia, if you go to the doctors and get put on the pill for whatever reason, they'll be like, okay, well, the pill depletes you of this vitamin, and you know, it also kind of destroys your gut microbiome, so you should be taking a probiotic. So after you go to your GP, you go to your nutritionist, tell them what you've been put on, and therefore what you need to now supplement. Whereas we don't think like that here.
No, not at all. But we know so little. That's what really annoyed me when I rang up to get my coil out. Was I rang up the doctors or nurses or whatever you ring up, I can't really remember now, and I said I want to get the coil out, and she said why, and I said to help with my fertility in future years, and she said, well, coil has no effect on your fertility. And I said, you don't know that, and you shouldn't be giving that information out. There's absolutely very little research on it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the coil's ruining anyone's fertility here.
Yeah.
But for you to say that it's not is ridiculous advice.
Yeah, definitely.
We know nothing.
Yeah. And also, what if that had affected your fertility and you'd kept it because this woman said so? Yeah,
and also it might have affected, I don't know until I crossed that bridge one day, you know? Another thing that made me whitey was, do you know this about the morning after pill?
What?
If you take the morning after pill, do you know how it works?
Yeah, so it stops the egg from being released.
Which is mad, because if it's already released, then you're done in.
Yeah. And
I took a panic. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. No, I know people this has happened to. I've taken the morning after pill and the eggs, they've already ovulated, so it just hasn't done anything. There's only a set amount of time that the morning after pill works on you for.
I knew that was the case.
No, sorry, and I don't mean time as in like post-sex, I mean time of the month.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy.
Panic, I thought it was like 99.5% effective, you'll always be fine. Not that I'm advocating taking the morning after pill as contraception, absolutely not. But I have had to take it before. When I read that, I was just taking a panic attack for the whole month until all the period.
No, I remember having to take it once, and I was looking at my app being like, holy fuck, if I've already ovulated, I'm just fucked here. And I mean, luckily it's okay, but yeah.
The joys.
I know. But that's what I was saying. Men will never ever understand that monthly freak out of, am I pregnant? They'll just never get that heart-sinking feeling of like convincing yourself that you're pregnant every single month, or convincing yourself that your boobs are swollen because you're pregnant as opposed to it being your period.
Me every time I have sex.
Or like that feeling when you've just done a pregnancy test and you've like fully been convincing yourself for the last 5 days that you're pregnant, and you're just sat there watching it like this. They will never understand that. They're so far removed from that. All they hear is just, oh, it's negative.
Do you know what a boyfriend actually said to me before?
What?
Why do you always tell me when you're on your period? I don't tell you every time I have a shit.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
And I said, oh, because it's my responsibility that I'm not pregnant every month. Because if I'm having regular sex, I'm like, happy days, I'm fine. There's always that wee bit of relief. No matter how careful I am,
yeah,
I'm always feeling it. And I was like, I thought I was going to actually dig the head of him. I was like, oh my God.
That's a crazy thing to say. Also,
he did apologise about it after, but I was like, you have to have a serious, hard look at yourself.
But not even that. Obviously, you're also telling him because you guys are engaging in that, but also as your boyfriend, would you not want to know when your girlfriend's period is, so that you know when she might be feeling a bit more emotional, or she might want her favourite chocolate? A symptom for me is I get really sore backs the day, usually 2 days before my period, and it lasts for a few days. So like, what if I wanted a back massage or a little hot water bottle? Do you know what I mean? Like, for you to just not care about that is crazy.
Also, it's not very smart to try and navigate life with a woman if that's your path, you know? Because even for me, if I'm making a business decision or I feel a bit hot-headed and I know it's like day one of my period, I'm like, leave it, Carla. Leave it to like 2 days in, you know, whereas other times in my cycle I might just go on my feeling, but I'll know to back off if I'm to go a wee bit slower with whatever decisions I'm making. Yeah. Because I can be so flippant, maybe. Yeah. Closer to when I'm taking my period. Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Isn't that mad?
Yeah.
Needless to say, that didn't work out. What is your summary thoughts then on casual sex for women?
Look, I think that for us to have got to a point in society where women can have casual sex is amazing. You know, for us to actually have contraception and live in a world where we do have options is great, but I think there's a lot of nuance to it, and I think putting it down to whether it's empowering or not, it's not as simple as that, because there are so many other things that come with it for women, and at the end of the day it's just not the same for men as it is for women.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think too, I am just a big believer in let people do what they want. Yeah. If someone wants to be frigid, and maybe that's not the nicest way to say it, by the way, I'm talking about myself here, let them. And if someone loves and gets a lot out of sleeping with a lot of men, like the Samantha Jones of the world, and I can't believe you haven't watched Sex and the City. I know. That's where we can tell the age gap between you and me. You know, and if you try and be Samantha Jones and you end up anxiety riddled, it's not the life for you. And I maybe go as far to say that the majority of women it's difficult for, and then there's 20% of women who do really get a lot out of it and feel empowered by it, but just because of the conditioning that we have in ourselves.
And I also think you can go through phases of your life where you find it empowering, and you can also go through phases in your life where you're just not interested in it. And sexuality is weird because it's one of those things where if you feed into it, you can become a very sexual person. Do you know what I mean? You can have times where you switch that off a little bit. Like, say you go through a phase where you're like, you know, kind of trying celibacy out. You might think at the start, oh, this is going to be really hard. And after a month of it, you're like, actually, once you're out of the habit of it, you can kind of switch that side off of things. Where sometimes I think if you feed into your sexuality and being this like sexual being, it makes you want it more as well. So I think, I don't know, you can have these like on and off times and finding it empowering sometimes, and then also finding it empowering to be celibate as well. I don't think you need to be so rigid in this is empowering or this isn't.
Yeah, like so attached, and I agree with what you would say in terms of who you are in your 20s to your 30s, post breakup, all these different elements to your life makes a difference. And also there is people who are just highly sexual, they've naturally been that way from a very young age, and that's just who they are, and it tends to stay quite steady for them.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I just find for me, I go through phases of being more sexual than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely people that maybe just are their whole lives or aren't their whole lives too.
Yeah, because asexuality is on the rise and people are having less sex now than before, which is another element to it, which makes me a bit sad though, just because of...
Asexuality though is where you actually... Is that where you actually don't even masturbate or anything? Like you don't actually like...
Yeah, you don't really have a sex drive.
Right, okay.
Where there's people who are having less sex but masturbating and they find that more fulfilling.
Yeah, which I get.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as a straight woman, yeah.
What's benefiting me more?
I listened to Lily Allen's and Makita's podcast, and Makita was talking about celibacy and she wanted to focus on her work, and she was like, sure, masturbation, happy days, let's be sorted. Don't need to deal with the headache of men and how much they can pull your mood, like what you had to go through. In the last year of uni.
Yeah. I know, because that whole side of it as well can obviously fuck with your head massively. Sometimes you can do it on your own.
No headaches.
Exactly.
Okay, I tend to finish when I have guests with, what is your favourite quote?
Oh God. Oh no, you put me on the spot.
Well, one of my favourite quotes, and I suppose because we're talking about relationships and love, which really stood out to me and always sits with me, is love is not looking at each other but looking outward in the same direction. Because there's times in my life I really loved someone but we weren't looking in the same direction and it was never going to work.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really important for me to remember, because there's so much more to being in a relationship than just having chemistry with someone. And just,
oh yeah, definitely.
You know, and that was a real lesson I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think definitely moving forward in my life, one that's important.
Yeah, there's so much more to a relationship than being in love with each other. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I've found this one, which is a very generic one, but I just really like this. Wait, I've just seen the one, you can't be everyone's cup of tea, but I actually like the one that's like, you could be the juiciest peach on the tree, but there'll always be someone that doesn't like peaches.
Yeah, it's an important lesson I learned, because I remember in work before, it was the first time someone didn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine and a mentor was saying, Carla, you're not going to get very far in life. Not everybody's going to like you, love, and you can't fall apart just because one person...
Yeah.
Because it did really break me that someone didn't believe in me and thought I was shit and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you must, because you're so public online,
mm-hmm.
you get so many criticisms, don't you, in terms of comments. And
mm-hmm.
I even had someone accusing me of having a fake Northern Irish accent on Instagram today.
Yeah, I know, you can't feed in too much to people. There's always, in any scenario, whether it's, you know, work, personal life, online, whatever it is, there's always going to be people that you're not going to please. There's people I don't like online, but that doesn't mean that they're not a good person. It just means they're not to my taste. I don't have to follow them. I don't want to, do you know what I mean? I don't have to listen to every word they said, but that's the key takeaway, is that you don't have to. You can just unfollow someone. So many people these days like rage follow someone so that they can negatively comment on them, and it's like, you know, it's really as simple as just unfollowing.
That's so mad. I think my therapist ghosted me was talking about that, where they were saying like a high amount of people who follow them just follow them because they hate
to
them.
just like make fun of them, yeah. And it's always, you know, like on TikTok, the way you can... Oh wait, you don't have TikTok, do you?
Well, I am on the TikTok, but I don't know how to work it.
The TikTok.
I don't know how to work it.
So on TikTok, you can see how many likes you have on a video, how many watches, how many saves, and then how many shares.
Okay.
So obviously sometimes shares is a good thing. Like shares can just be people sending their friend a recipe video to be like, oh, we should make this. But a lot of shares can also be people talking shit. And in fairness, keep it in your shares, like keep it in your direct messages. I don't want to see it in my comments, so like that's a good thing. But sometimes I think about that too much and I'm like, well, that has a lot of shares, and I know it's like people chatting shit, but you can't think about that.
But could it not be, she looks great here,
like it could.
I want her earrings?
Yeah,
I think a lot of the
be.
shares are usually that, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's probably also a lot of like, what the fuck's she on about, or who does she think she is, or
yeah.
And
I feel that too, you know. I think once you're sharing yourself, especially being from Belfast, you're like, oh
yeah.
like, I regret
post something and throw your phone at the wall.
I regret my decision.
Yeah.
I want to take it down.
I know, yeah. And we have a very strange thing, I'd say, here when people do put themselves out there, or once people see any success, we love to like tear people down from here and be like, who do they think they are, kind of thing.
You can't really get big for your boots, I don't think, in the whole of Ireland. I don't think so.
It's strange, whereas Americans are very like bigging everyone up, and yeah, we have a bit of a weird culture here where that's concerned, I think.
And I think because in America there's so many business owners, there's so many influencers, there's so many models, actresses, it's saturated, where it's just not that common here. Do you know what I mean? People very much feel like they have to stay in their box. And even like for me, because I'm a bit older probably too, I don't know that many people doing YouTube the way you would do it and stuff. Is there that many people from here?
I don't really think so. Don't get me wrong, there is like an influencer community, but I'm not, honestly not that involved.
No?
In it? No. I don't know why. I was actually saying this on a recent podcast of mine. I like really keep to myself sometimes, and it's probably to my own detriment, but yeah, I don't know. But there is a bit of a scene. I wouldn't say it's as big as in the likes of like London, obviously. Yeah,
because the influencers I'm thinking about from here and the community here is very different to you though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like nightclubs and all that sort of stuff. They do a lot of party scene things, which you don't tend to really do. You're just more makeup aligned, food aligned.
Yeah.
To do with your values and ethics. And what else do you have coming up work-wise?
See, to be honest, I've just recently started getting guests on my podcast. So I'm trying to do that once a month, where I'm trying to do it in studios and stuff. And I just started doing video podcasts as well, so I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole editing side of that. Yeah, so I just feel like I'm up to my eyes at the moment with all that, but I need to get you on my podcast soon.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're focused on the podcast. I'm really curious about your sobriety podcast that's coming up.
Oh, yes, the one I did with the girls from Dublin, yes.
Yeah.
So they run an event in Dublin called Sunflower Sessions.
Okay.
It's a sober event. You'd be great, actually, for that. If they ever did a Belfast one.
I must check it out.
Yeah.
And try and be sober for the first time in my life would help.
But yeah, they were really great to talk to because they kind of started this sober event based off of their want for a sober event in a little kind of community. And I just thought it was a good thing to talk about while I was going through this little sober stint.
Oh, that's good. No, it definitely is. And there's just so many people who want to learn more about the different options they have in terms of dealing with not drinking and the awkwardness or maybe anxiety that can bring up.
And just like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in that way.
Yeah.
Especially in Ireland because, you know, we're very much known for our drinking culture and the pubs and...
You're not drinking. You think you were saying, I don't know, you had 3 heads. People have a heart attack.
I know, because it's like so normalised in America to just say you're going sober, or do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like that's only really becoming a thing here now. Yeah,
especially with the Gen Zs, especially with the youth.
Yeah.
And you can catch Emma's podcast. It's Here for the Crack. It's released every Monday. You're very good. I've only made a comeback after 2 months running away from podcasting.
Oh, it's hard to keep up with, isn't it?
Have you been quite consistent, haven't you, from the start?
Oh, don't get me wrong, when I first started out, there probably would have been a few blips here and there, but no, in general, now I am every Monday morning, 6 a.m.
Very good on the ball.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stick to Wednesdays at 12.
Yeah, I think it's good to have your little routines and recording days and really have a proper structure. Otherwise, you never know when you'll get it done.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been so gorgeous.
Yeah,
and yeah, I can't wait to hear from you all your thoughts on casual sex. I've heard from some of you already that you absolutely love it, that some of you feel empowered, some of you feel judged, and just the whole mixed bag. And I suppose these conversations are just really good for normalising how different we all feel and to acknowledge how far we've came as women.
Oh yeah, definitely. Since our grannies, imagine.
One partner for life, God bless.
My grandparents would be turning in their at this episode.
My granny would be up to high dome. My mum probably still will be up to high dome. And I should put a warning, don't listen to this. The thoughts of me having casual sex will probably spiral them.
But yeah, we've come such a long way, and to be able to have this conversation even is amazing. But yeah, not one shoe fits all, really. And it won't be the same for you for the rest of your life as well. You know, times after breakups where I've been like, fuck men, fully celibate for 6 months. And then there's been times I've been like, fuck men, I'm going viral for a few months as well. So I don't know, it just kind of depends on your mentality at the time and what makes you feel empowered. And if you're at a different stage in your life, that doesn't mean you should be judgmental of someone else being at a different stage in their life.
Yeah, drop the judgment.
Yeah.